Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of hundreds of monstricology and strategy videos on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider becoming a member of the channel or backing me on Patreon and subscribing to me here, obviously, as I upload at least twice a week. Time to unveil the first of the Monster Mash creature creations from the Mighty Gluestick official Discord channel. This first creature is the brainchild of member Not a Dog, aka Nate, one that caught my eye as it appeals to my fascination with ecology. It fits a niche that is a bit empty in D&D and is quite useful to me as I happen to be running a game in Chult right now, at this very moment. So I would like to present his creation, the Chultan Moss Wasp. And I quote, "Deep in the jungles of Chult, there exists a species of wasps so horrific that natives believe them to be spirits sent to fulfill a curse laid upon any who would try to tame the jungle and build settlements. These wasps have avoided documentation for centuries, but after years spent in the jungle researching the species, I can confirm they are in fact very real. And though not a mythic curse, they are as terrifying as any, I can assure you. I have named this species of 4-foot-long wasp the Chultan Moss Wasps. The Grung natives speak of these rare wasps in hushed croaks and whispered ribbits, as they believe that even speaking the names of these demon wasps is believed to bring misfortune, and some tribes even leave live sacrifices of captured intruders staked far outside their encampments to appease them when they believe one is nearby. They've earned such fear and reverence due to their preference towards targeting grung for their favoured prey. The grung's natural fear of these wasps has led some settlers to paint green moss and wasp motifs on the walls of their settlements to ward off the amphibian menace, who will go out of their way to avoid such places painted as such. However, this has caused the occasional wasp to attempt to use the paintings as camouflage, leading to cases of wasps preying on the settlers. It is believed that some of these giant wasps were created by a jungle spirit, angered by the grung ancestors when they began using wood to build their tiny huts. They were sent to wipe out the grung and reclaim the jungle for nature, and the behaviour of these verdant vespids has done little to dissuade this belief. Though mostly solitary in nature, moss wasps have developed a strained relationship with the moss native to the lush Chultan jungles. These horrific hymenopterids' compressed cephalothorax and distal abdomen are covered in a thick layer of moss that sprouts from within the creature's exoskeleton. The moss affords them superior camouflage against the moss and vine-covered tree trunks. In exchange, the wasps act as gardeners of the moss, picking suitable trees and promoting the moss's growth by adhering the corpses of victims high up on the trunks of trees with a natural cement made from dirt, plant matter, and the wasp's own saliva. The wasp then rubs the moss-covered segments of its body against the corpse and spits cement to cover them in spores. In time, the moss grows to envelop the corpse and cover the surrounding area of the tree in a lush carpet, feeding on the decaying body before its thin rhizoid roots affix themselves to the tree's bark. When mature, the moss produces stalks capped with fleshy, nutrient-rich bulbs that the wasps eat. Despite their predatory behaviour and reputation, the wasps are herbivorous in their mature stage. These bulbs contain spores that, once eaten, somehow concentrate in the dorsal section of the wasp's exoskeleton and eventually sprout. The frond-like protrusions that seem to sprout from the moss on the wasp's abdomen are not actually part of the moss itself, but instead highly sensitive antennae that sense minute vibrations in the air caused by movement. The growth of the moss is believed to stimulate the development of this antennae, as young specimens who haven't yet grown any moss lack such antennae, and instead have small tiny bumps where the antennae will develop later. Despite usually being solitary, in areas where humanoid prey is abundant, next to tribes of grungs for instance, groups of up to 10 wasps can be seen working together to create immense corpse gardens along the tree trunks and lower canopy of the jungle. The reproductive habits of the Chultan moss wasps are most unusual when compared to that of any other species of wasp. All members of this species are female and reproduce through a form of internal parthenogenesis or virgin birth, making them essentially born pregnant, a trait not found in any other species of wasp. Typically one would see this sort of thing in aphids, a tactic which ensures they can get maximum use of resources in a world where everything is out to eat them. To talk about the wasp's reproduction further, we must first talk about the wasp's most lethal feature, its stinger. The moss wasp stinger seems to be the run-of-the-mill variety as seen in any wasp, but on closer inspection it functions quite differently. The retractable stinger of these wasps serves to inject venom, yes, as all wasp stingers do, but it also serves as the species ovipositor, injecting an egg into the victim at the time of stinging. Despite the tendency to deliver multiple stings on a target, a wasp will only ever lay a single egg inside a victim, to prevent competition between its offspring. The wasp's venom plays a critical role in the development of the young wasp, not only in debilitating the host but also in helping the wasp grow its signature moss covering. When injected with venom, the host will feel quite ill. As is normal with being poisoned, what is not normal is the fact that if left untreated, moss will start to grow from the wound and spread over the host's body as the poisoning worsens and putrefies the flesh under the moss. Within 1 week of being poisoned, the venom will have killed the host, and the moss will spread across the host's body. During this time, internally, the egg will hatch, and the larvae wasp will eat its way through the host's body, and will eventually emerge through the moss as a mature adult. After a week from this point, the wasp's moss, its own moss, will sprout, and its abdominal antennae will begin to form. Adult moss wasps have an armor class of 14. They are medium-sized, with 68 hit dice for an average of 27 hit points. On the ground they move at about 15 feet, but have a 50-foot flight speed and can hover perfectly well. They have a strength of 12, dexterity of 16, constitution of 10, intelligence of 1, wisdom of 15 due to the keen senses, and a charisma of 3, though the locals who know about them will find them far more intimidating than that charisma score suggests. They have a passive perception of 14, but are +4 on active perception checks and are pretty active as a species, rarely sitting still for very long in the thriving tropical lands they occupy. Their territory is not just restricted to the island of Chult. They can also be found in the black jungles and mare jungles surrounding the Lapao Sea, and are well known in Tashla on the shores of the Shining Sea. Across the waters from Kalimshan, very rarely you can find living specimens sold in cages in the markets of Kalimport and Manshaka, with a few seen in the summer in the Spider Swamp, probably escaped from the markets, but unable to establish a foothold so far to the north as the Forest of Mere, thankfully. Thanks to their sensitive antennae, the moss wasp has a very sensitive 90-foot blind sight, and when roused into action they can attack with 1 bite and 1 sting every combat round. They are +6 to hit with both. The bite inflicts one creature within 5 feet with a 2d4 +3 piercing damage. The stinger does 2d6 +3 piercing damage and also requires a DC 15 Constitution saving throw, or the victim takes 4d6 poison damage, reduced by half if they make a successful save. If they fail the save, they also suffer from the poisoned condition. If the poison reduces them to 0 hit points, they don't actually die from it, they just become paralyzed and poisoned for the next hour unless they make at least one of the next 3 DC 15 Constitution saving throws. If they don't, then the paralysis can only be cured by a greater restoration spell or a wish spell. While paralyzed, they can have hit points restored and do heal at the normal rate, but they also take 2d6 necrotic damage, reducing their hit point maximum by that amount each new day at dawn as living moss sprouts from their sting wound and begins to spread across their body. If their regular hit points or maximum hit points are reduced to 0 while paralyzed this way, the moss completely envelops the victim, and shortly after, the adult moss wasp emerges from the corpse. I did alter the poison a little bit from Nate's original while keeping in perfect spirit with what he intended the stinger to do. Parasitic wasps come in a dizzying array of shapes and habits all across the world. They are well worth some casual study if you ever get the chance. I suggest you go check them out. They may well provide some D&D inspiration for you, just their habits alone, and if you combine them with different species, not just insect species, you can make a very interesting case for a parasitic badger or something like that. If you like the lore in these videos, don't forget to check out videos by fellow Forgotten Realms lore masters. Check out my channels tab where I have a list of them for you to explore. Absolutely go and check out the Discord server, and if you feel like creating some monsters that may well get featured on this channel, contribute to the Monster Mash each month. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do. Check out my Patreon for some exclusive content and all the full scripts for these videos. Buy some merchandise, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.